Okay, there we go. Good morning, football fans. Big out here on this Tuesday, December 6th, 2022. And welcome to the Week 13 edition of the week that was. As I'll run down all the team statistical numbers from this past week in the National Football League. And also coming up the end, we'll look at the plus my week 14 power rank. Let's jump right in to the week that was. We recap week number 13 in the NFL, and we start as always with Thursday night football and an AFC Eastern Division battle in Foxborough, pitting the Buffalo Bills and the New England Patriots. The Bills came in with an 8-3 record, and they were sitting at number 5 in my power rankings. In fact, the Buffalo Bills came in with a record of 8-3, and the New England Patriots came in at 6-5. It looks like the Bills' dominance against the Pats continue as Buffalo wins 24-10. All right, Buffalo ran 70 offensive plays, 33 passes, and 37 runs, while New England ran 50 plays, 36 passes, and only 14 runs. Total yards were 355 for the Bills, 242 for the Patriots. Passing yards favored the Bills as well, 223 to 182. Rushing yards also favored Buffalo, 132 to 60. I said 220. Yeah, that's right. 223 passing yards. Okay. Buffalo had 22 first downs, while the Patriots had 14. Oh, here we go again. Let me just start backing up. All right, Buffalo had 22 first downs. New England had 14. And for the season, the Bills have 286 first downs through 12 games. The Patriots have 202. The Bills finished 9 of 15 on third down for 60%. Patriots for 3 of 12 for 25%. As far as fourth down plays, there were none for the Bills, 1 for the Patriots, which they converted. Each team had 6 penalties in the game. 47 yards on 6 penalties for Buffalo, 62 yards on 6 penalties for New England. Time of possession is 38 minutes and 8 seconds for the Bills and 21 minutes, 32 seconds for the New England Patriots. This puts Buffalo in ball hawk territory. A ball hawk is a team that possesses the ball for at least 35 minutes in a game, win or lose, and that's for my newbies on the channel. All right, taking a look at the defensive numbers. 38 tackles and 24 solo tackles for the Bills. Their totals on the season are now 526 and 256. Buffalo's defense recorded 1 sack. That's their 31st of the year. 1 forced fumble, their 5th of the year. They have 6 passes defense, putting them at 65. And no interceptions or touchdowns by the defense this week. So for the season, they stay at 13 interceptions and 1 touchdown. For the New England Patriots, they had 47 tackles and 20 solo, bringing their totals to 503 and 194. Their defense recorded 2 sacks this week, bringing their season total to 38. They also forced a fumble in this game, their 9th. And 3 passes defense for them. That gives them 49. And And no interceptions or touchdowns for the Patriot defense. So they remain at 12 picks and 2 touchdowns. The closing line in this game was Buffalo. In fact, I got my Sports Alerts app up on my Chromebook, so I can go ahead and tell you that information here. Give me just a moment. Here we go. Okay. Really? There we go. The closing line in this game was Buffalo -4, and the over-under was 44. I picked the Bills 28-21. I had the game going over the total. The game finished under. So I got the straight up pick and the ATS pick, as I also picked Buffalo to cover what was then 3.5 points, later risen to 4 at close. That brings us to the Sunday schedule, kicking things off. The long-awaited return of Deshaun Watson after 700 days of not playing in the NFL due to all of his legal troubles. His new team, the Cleveland Browns, went to Houston to face his old team, the Houston Texans. The Browns came in with a 4-7 record, while the Texans have the worst mark in the NFL at 1-9-1. And it goes without saying, Deshaun was pretty rusty. I mean, he hasn't played a game in almost 2 years, so you kind of expect that. But the Browns did handle their business and beat the Texans 27-14. The Browns ran 60 offensive plays, 22 passes, and 38 runs, while the Texans ran 62 plays, 39 passes, and 23 runs. All right. And there was not a lot of offense by either team. 304 yards for the Browns, only 283 for the Texans. Passing yards favored Houston, 201-130. And rushing yards favored Cleveland at more than a 2-1 clip, 174-82. First downs were 16 for the Texans, 14 for the Browns. Through 12 games, the Cleveland Browns now have 264 first downs, while the Texans have 197. Both teams really struggled on third down, one team in particular. The Browns were 4 for 13, that's 30.8%. The Texans, however, they were a putrid 1 for 12, that's 8.3%. No fourth down plays for the Browns. Texans were 1 for 2. Cleveland finished the game with 6 penalties for 56 yards. Houston, 5 penalties for 31. Time of possessions, 32 minutes and 16 seconds for the Browns, 27 minutes and 44 seconds for the Texans. Cleveland's defense recorded 35 tackles, and none of them were solos, so their totals for the year are now 485 and 226. Cleveland's defense did not register a sack in this game, so they stay at 25 for the year. They did force a couple of fumbles, though, so they go to 9 in that category. And they had 7 passes defensed in the game, bringing their season total to 54. They also had 2 interceptions, one of which was returned for a touchdown. So now the Browns defense has 5 interceptions and that pick 6 that I just talked about. For the Texans, they had 45 tackles and 16 solo. Season totals are 579 and 286. They had the game's only sack, which brings their season total to 30. They also forced a fumble in this game, their 7th, and 4 passes defense, bringing them to 40. They too had an interception, their 8th of the season versus 0 touchdowns. All right. Going into the Browns-Texans game. All right, this thing's taking too long to load up. Back out and come back. Okay, there it is. The closing line in this game was Cleveland minus 7.5, and the over-under was 46. I picked the Cleveland Browns to win 24-14. I had this game going under the total, which it did. And I picked the Browns to cover the 7 points, and they did so, winning by 13. So that's another win, both straight up and against the spread. Our next game is going to be the Denver Broncos at the Baltimore Ravens. And first things first, Baltimore does win the game 10-9, but it does come at a price for the Baltimore Ravens, as quarterback Lamar Jackson suffered an injury, did not return, and it looks like he's going to be out for a little bit. More chances to not he won't be playing in Week 14, but according to Coach John Harbaugh, it's not impossible. However, it is unlikely that Jackson does play. So that's a pretty big bummer for the Ravens. Again, Baltimore beats Denver 10-9 as the Broncos' offensive struggles continue. Denver ran 60 plays, or rather 50 plays, 22 passes and 28 runs, while the Baltimore Ravens ran 65 plays, 37 passes, and 28 runs. And both teams did not record 300 yards in this game, as the Ravens had 285 yards of offense. The Broncos had 272. Passing yards are a slight edge to Denver, 184 to 182. And rushing yards favored Baltimore, 103 to 88. First downs also favored the Baltimore Ravens. They had 20 versus 12 for the Broncos. Baltimore, through 12 games, now have 251 first downs. Denver has 199. And both teams were terrible on third down. Denver 2 for 12, 16.7%. Baltimore 3 for 13, 23.1%. The Broncos did not have a fourth down play, and I mentioned that the Ravens were terrible on third down as the Broncos were. But what Baltimore lacked in success on third down, they more than made up for it on fourth down, as they were a perfect 3 for 3. The Broncos had 4 penalties for 48 yards. The Ravens had 3 for 15. Time of possession was 32 minutes and 29 seconds for Baltimore, 27 minutes and 31 seconds for Denver. The Broncos defense records 52 tackles, 20 solo tackles. Totals are down 524 and 209. They did record 4 sacks in this game, bringing their season total to 29. They had 1 forced fumble on the season, or 1 forced fumble in the game, and 15 on the season. 3 passes defense, bringing their total to 49. And they also had a couple interceptions, pushing their total to 7. The Ravens, meanwhile, records 47 tackles, 24 solo. Totals are 505 and 285. They had 2 sacks on the afternoon, 37 for the season. They didn't force a fumble in this game, so they stay at 12. They had 1 pass defense in the game. That's their 51st. 0 touchdowns or interceptions by the defense. So they remain with 11 picks. The closing line in this game was Baltimore -4.5, or rather Baltimore -8.5, and the over-under was 40.5. I picked the Ravens to win 21-13. And like anyone else, I also took the under in this game. Wise move. And another wise move, I took Denver to cover the 8.5 points because I just don't trust Baltimore's offense right now. And luckily, the gamble paid off. Now I'm 2-1 straight up, or rather 3-0 straight up, and 3-0 against the spread. So I'm off to a rather fiery start to the week. Okay, the Packers and the Bears are coming up. All right, the next game we're going to look at is the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears. If this thing stops acting up, there we go. Okay. The Packers came in with a 4-8 record. The Bears came in with a 3-9 record. And let's just say this. Aaron Rodgers still owns the Chicago Bears as Green Bay rallied in the second half to defeat Chicago 28-19. Packers ran 63 offensive plays, 31 passes, 32 runs, pretty balanced attack. The Bears ran 50 plays, 25 passes, and 25 runs. Again, balanced attack. Total yards were 409 for Chicago, 357 for Green Bay. Passing yards favored the Chicago Bears, who had the worst passing offense in the NFL. They recorded 254 yards through the air versus 182 for Green Bay. But the Packers outrushed them 175-155. First downs were 21 for the Packers, 15 for the Bears for the season. 253 first downs for Green Bay through 13 games and 230 for Chicago through 13 games. Both teams did pretty well on third down. 6 of 13, 46.2% for the Packers. 6 of 11, 54.5% for the Bears. Green Bay finished 1 for 2 on fourth down. The Bears did not have a fourth down play. The Packers were penalized only twice for 20 yards. Chicago was penalized 5 times for 63. Time of possession, 32 minutes, 28 seconds for the Pack, and 27 minutes, 32 seconds for the Bears. Packers defense, 39 tackles, 14 solo. Totals are 562 and 253. Bears defense, 45 tackles, 26 solo. And on the year, 549 and 263. Neither team recorded a sack in this game. So Green Bay stays at 24 sacks through 13 games. The Bears are at 16, which is tied for the fewest among any team in the NFL. All right, Green Bay forced a fumble in the game. They're 7th. The Bears did not, so they stay at 10. Yeah, 2 passes defense for the Packers. That's 39 on the year. The Bears stay at 37. Green Bay's defense recorded 2 interceptions, giving them 10 with a defensive touchdown. The Bears had no interceptions, so they remain at 11. The closing line in this game was Green Bay -3.5, and the over-under was 44.5. I picked Green Bay to win this game 24-19. I had the game finishing in a push, which was 43 points, but it rose to 44. So this game technically finished under the total. No, it finished over the total with the 47. And I picked Green Bay to cover what was 5 points, which was then later dropped to 3.5, and they did so, winning by 9. So I am a perfect 4 for 4 straight up and against the spread. All right, the next game we're going to look at is the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Detroit Lions. Both teams coming in at 4-7. Jacksonville came into this game in trouble as far as the AFC playoff picture. The Lions looking for their 4th win in 5 games, looking to stay in the race in the NFC, or should I say the weak NFC. And it's mission accomplished if you're Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions, as they pulverized the Jags 40-14. Jacksonville ran 53 plays, 34 passes, 19 runs. Detroit 72 plays, 41 passes, 31 runs. All right, the Lions posted 437 yards of offense to 266 for the Jaguars. So this may be by far Detroit's best defensive outing so far in 2022. All right, passing yards, 337 to 171 for Detroit. Rush yards, slight advantage to the Lions as well, 100 to 95. First down for more than a 2-1 edge to the Detroit Lions, 31 versus Jacksonville's 14. So the Lions through 12 games have 267 first downs, and the Jaguars have 252 through 12. Jacksonville was 3 of 12 on third down for 25%. Detroit, superb on third down. They were 8 for 12 for 66.7%. Fourth downs, real good for Jacksonville. 3 for 4, 75%. No fourth down plays for the Lions. The Jaguars were flagged 5 times for 24 yards. The Lions only 1 penalty the entire day for 10 yards. Time of possession, 36 minutes, 50 seconds for Detroit. 23 minutes, 10 seconds for Jacksonville. This puts the Lions in ball hawk territory. Looking at the defenses, Jacksonville recorded 50 tackles, 15 solo. Totals are now 518 and 220. Lions, 36 tackles, 20 solo. They're up to 566 and 323. Each team recorded 2 sacks. Jacksonville now has 19. Detroit has 22. No forced fumbles for the Jaguars, 1 for the Lions. That's their 11th of the year, while Jacksonville stays at 10. Each team had 4 passes defensed. That puts Jacksonville at 68 and the Lions at 41. And no interceptions on either side. Jacksonville and Detroit both with 9 interceptions and 1 touchdown. The closing line in this game was Detroit minus 1.5, and the over-under was 51.5. And this game just finished over that total. Picked the Lions to win 8-20 and to cover the spread. So now I am 5-0, both straight up and against the spread. Off to a fiery start here in week 13. Okay, the next game we're going to look at is the New York Jets and the Minnesota Vikings. I'm going to get the specs up here on the Sports Alerts app. Give me just a moment. This thing takes too long. Well, I can go ahead and tell you that the New York Jets would be the last team in the AFC playoffs if the postseason started on Sunday. They came in with a 7-4 record, and they were sitting in the number 7 playoff spot, that third and final wild card spot in the AFC. The Minnesota Vikings would also be in the playoffs right now. They would be the 2 seed in the NFC. They entered with a 9-2 record. And they came in winning 8 of those 9 games by 1 score. And Sunday would make it 9 for the Minnesota Vikings as the Jets struggled on third down and in the red zone. And Minnesota would take advantage of that and win 27-22 over the Jets. New York ran a season-high 82 plays in this game, 58 passes and 24 runs, while the Vikings ran 64 plays, 35 passes, and 29 runs. The Jets outgained the Vikings 486 to 287, so nearly a 200-yard discrepancy between the two teams. The Jets did outgain the Vikings through the air by over 200. They had 366 passing yards, while Minnesota had 159. Rushing is a slight advantage to the home team. 128 yards for the Vikings versus a $120 for the Jets. First downs were 23-21 in favor of New York. So the Jets through 12 games now has 216 first downs. The Vikings have 258. All right. Like I said, the Jets really struggled on third down in this game. 3 out of 16. That's 18.8%. The Vikings, 9 of 18 for 50%. As for fourth downs, 2 of 5 for the Jets versus 1 for 1 for the Vikings. The Jets had 6 penalties. As for the defenses, the Jets had 41 total tackles, 22 solo. Totals are 5, 12, and 230. Vikings had 51 tackles, 28 solo. 548 and 338 are their totals. New York posted 2 sacks on defense. That's 36 on the year. Minnesota recorded 1 sack, their 30th. No forced fumbles by either team, so the Jets remain with 9 fumbles. The Viking defense with 8. And passes defense 14 for the Minnesota Vikings and 5 for the Jets. For the season, the Minnesota Vikings, the Jets have 58 after their 5 on Sunday. No interceptions by the New York defense, so they stay with 12 interceptions and a touchdown. 2 more picks for the Vikings, that gives them a dozen on the year. Closing line was Minnesota minus 2.5, and the over-under was 43. I did pick the Jets to win this game and to cover the spread as the road underdog, and the game does go over the point total, which at the end was 43. The two teams combined for 49. So there's my first loss straight up and against the spread. Let's be 5-1. Okay, now we're going to the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Atlanta Falcons. And that would be this one right here. Off we go with this one. The Steelers came in with a 4-7 record, while the Atlanta Falcons, still very much alive in the NFC South title picture, came in with a 5-7 record. Well, the one storyline in this game is Pittsburgh coach Mike Tomlin a game to the Falcons as the Steelers head coach. They say it was 4-0 versus Atlanta in his coach into Mercedes-Benz Stadium and held off the Falcons 19-16. The Steelers ran 65 offensive plays, 28 passes, 37 runs. Falcons 52 plays, 24 passes, and 28 runs. Total yards are 351 for the Steelers, 306 for the Falcons. Passing and rushing both favored Pittsburgh as well. 197 passing yards for the Steelers versus 160 for the Falcons. And 154 rush yards for Pittsburgh versus Atlanta's 146. First downs also favored Pittsburgh, 22-18. This gives the Steelers 236 through 12 games and the Falcons 250 through 13. All right, Steelers 50% on third down, 6 out of 12. Falcons 30% on third down, 3 out of 10. No fourth down plays for the Steelers. The Falcons had 1 fourth down play, which they converted. All right, 7 penalties for the Steelers for 30 yards, 6 for the Falcons for 48. Time of possessions, 32 minutes and 55 seconds for Pittsburgh and 27 minutes, 5 seconds for Atlanta. All right, looking at the defenses, 36 tackles and 16 solo for the Steelers. They're up to 500 total tackles, 203 solo. And 33 total tackles, none solo for the Falcons. They are at 548 and 163. The Steelers had the game's lone sack of the afternoon, so that's 23 sacks now for the Pittsburgh defense. The Falcons remain at 16, tied with Chicago for the fewest sacks in the NFL. All right. No forced fumbles on either side in this game. So the Steelers remain at 14, the Falcons at 5. Pittsburgh had 3 passes defense. They're up to 64. 2 passes defense for Atlanta. That's 55 on the year. And the Steelers had an interception. That is their 14th of the year to go along with a defensive touchdown, while the Falcons remain at 10 interceptions and 1 touchdown. Closing line was Pittsburgh -1, and the over-under was 43. I picked the Falcons to win and to cover. I lost both those picks, and I had the game going under the 43 points, and the two teams combined for 35. So now I am 5-2 straight up and against the spread. All right, next up will be the Tennessee Titans at the Philadelphia Eagles. All right, Tennessee and Philadelphia, the respective leaders of the AFC South and NFC East. The Titans came in with a 7-4 record. The Eagles came in with the NFL's best record at 10-1. And since 2000, the Titans pretty much have owned the Eagles, winning 5 out of 6 in this series versus Philadelphia since 2000. Well, they couldn't make it 6 out of 7 as the Eagles' air attack dominates, and the Eagles fly to 11-1 with a 35-10 win. The Titans ran only 47 plays, 26 passes, and 21 runs. The Eagles ran 65 plays, 41 passes, and 24 runs. Total yards were 453 for Philadelphia, 209 for Tennessee. Passing yards, 386 to 122 for the Eagles. Tennessee actually outgained Philly on the ground, 87 to 67, as both teams had a tough time running the rock in this one. All right, first downs, 26 for Philly, 11 for Tennessee. Through 12 games, the Eagles now have 279 first downs, the Titans 186. All right, both teams were held under 30% on third down, 4 of 14, 28.6 for Tennessee, 3 of 11, 27.3 for Philadelphia. Fourth down plays, 1 for 2 for the Titans, and a perfect 3 for 3 for the Eagles. How about this? Philly is now at 75% conversions on fourth downs, 18 of 24. The 75% conversion percentage on fourth down is tied for the best in the NFL. But there were flags aplenty in this game, especially on the home team. Tennessee had 7 penalties for 82 yards. Philadelphia committed a season-high 12 penalties for 80 yards. Time of possession was 32 minutes and 33 seconds for the Eagles, 27 minutes and 27 seconds for the Tennessee Titans. Looking at the defenses, you had 52 tackles, 32 solo by the Titans. Totals are 554 and 284. 40 total tackles, 20 solo by the Eagles. They're up to 509 and 241. The Titans had 2 sacks in the game. That brings their total to 33. While the Eagles would sack Ryan Tannehill 6 times. That brings their total to 41. There was 1 forced fumble in the game, and that went to the Titans, their 10th of the year. Philly stays at 10. 3 passes defense for the Titans defense, that's 51. And 6 for the Eagles, putting them at 65. Neither side had an interception, so Tennessee stays with 9 interceptions, Philly with 15, both with a defensive touchdown. Wait a second. The closing line in this game was Philly minus 4.5, and the over-under was 44.5. And this game just slightly finished over that total at 45. I picked the Eagles to win 27-17 and to cover the spread. I got both those picks right. So now I am 6-2 straight up and against the point spread. If you're joining me late, this is the week that was, as we're taking a look at the team statistical numbers from week 13 in the NFL. Coming up later, my week 14 power rankings and the updated NFL standings. Not in that particular order, but that's what is coming up. So stay with us. The final Sunday game in the early window pitted the 7-5 Washington Commanders, winners of 6 of 7, taking on the 7-4 New York Football Giants, who seem to have come back to earth a bit. Washington rallied to tie the game and send it to overtime, and it would end there in a 20-20 tie. So we had our second tie in the NFL this year. Of course, the Colts and Texans played to a tie back in week 1. All right. Washington ran 77 plays, 41 passes, 36 runs. New York ran 61 plays, 31 passes, and 30 runs. Total yards were 411 for the Commanders, 316 for the Giants. Pass yards favored the Commanders, 246 to 182. Rushing yards also favored the Commanders, 165, 134. First downs also advantage Washington, 25 to 20. The Commanders now have 265 first downs through 13 games. The Giants 248 through 12. Both teams were bad on third down. Plain and simple. 3 of 14 for Washington, that's 21.4%. 4 of 13 for the Giants, that's 30.8%. Washington had the only fourth down play in the game, and it was a conversion. 7 penalties on the afternoon for the Commanders for 56 yards, 4 for 34 for the New York Giants. Time of possession is 41 minutes and 11 seconds for Washington. That puts them deep in ball hawk territory. Giants 28 minutes, 49 seconds. And so Washington is the front runner for ball hawk of the week. See if they get it a little bit later. All right, as far as tackles, there were a bunch of them. 55 tackles, 34 solo for the Washington Commanders. 52 total tackles, 8 solo for the New York Giants. On the season, Washington has 504 tackles, 225 solo. Giants 499 tackles, 207 solo. And this game was a sack fest. 9 total sacks in this game. 5 by the Giants, 4 by the Commanders. New York now has 24 sacks, while Washington has 33. And neither team took care of the football outside of their quarterbacks, as there were 5 forced fumbles in the game, 3 by the Giants and 2 by the Commanders. New York's 3 forced fumbles gives them an NFL leading 17, while Washington is at 7 after their couple. Passes defense, 4 for the Giants, 2 for Washington. Both teams now have 51. No interceptions on either side. Washington stays at 7 interceptions and a touchdown. New York 4 interceptions. Closing line in this game, and I didn't put this thing out, so give me just a second. We'll go right to I did now. Here we go. Go right to Washington and the New York Giants. And I can tell you that the closing line was Washington minus 2.5 and the over-under was 40. Well, since each team scored 20 points, you pushed the total in that game. I did pick Washington to win 28-23. But as you know, the game finished in a tie, so there's that. And I picked Washington to cover, and I'll take the L there. So that would make my record 6-3 ATS, 6-2-1 straight up. Okay, now we made it to the late afternoon portion of the schedule. That's the next game we're going to look at is the Miami Dolphins and the San Francisco 49ers, 2 teams with Super Bowl aspirations. The Dolphins came in with an 8-3 record. In fact, they were the leaders in the AFC East entering Week 13. Meanwhile, the 49ers came in as the leaders in the NFC West with a 7-4 record and winners of 4 straight games. Bad news is that Jimmy Garoppolo had a foot injury and may be out for a while. So that means Matt Purdy, Mr. Irrelevant, the final player taken in the 2022 NFL Draft, was brought in to fill in for Jimmy G. And he did a heck of a job. as the Niners capitalize on some sloppy mistakes by the Dolphins and win their fifth straight game 33-17. Miami ran only 42 offensive plays, 34 passes, and 8, count them, 8 run plays. The Niners, meanwhile, they ran 75 plays, 41 passes, and 34 runs. Total yards favored the 49ers, 351 to 308. Passing yards favored Miami, 275 to 230. Rushing yards favored San Francisco, huge. Nearly at 4-1 here, 121 to 33. First downs were 24 for San Francisco, 14 for Miami. Through 12 games, the Dolphins have 255 first downs. The 49ers have 246. Here's a big reason why Miami lost this game. Third downs. They were 0 for 7 on third down in this game. 0 for 7. That's not good. San Francisco, meanwhile, they finished 8 of 19 for 42.1%. And both teams were 1 for 2 on fourth down. The Dolphins had 8 penalties for 68 yards. 49ers had 4 penalties for 45. Time of possession is 40 minutes, 34 seconds for the 49ers. 19 minutes, 26 seconds for the Miami Dolphins. All right, as far as tackles are concerned, 55 total tackles, 22 solo for the Dolphins, 29 and 18 for the 49ers. Totals are 520 and 224 for Miami, 483, 236 for San Francisco. This game was a sack fest in itself, too. 7 total sacks in this game, 4 by Miami and 3 by the Niners. The Dolphins now have 29 sacks. The 49ers have 37. Both teams recorded a forced fumble on Sunday afternoon, and that's 10 forced fumbles by both teams this year. 4 passes defense for the Dolphins gives them 51. 6 passes defense for the Niners puts them at 54. All right. Miami added an interception. That's their 7th of the season. San Francisco had 3 interceptions. They also got a fumble recovery for a touchdown in this game, so I'll count that as a defensive score. So now the Niners have 12 interceptions and 3 defensive scores. They're tied with the Carolina Panthers for the second most defensive touchdowns in the NFL, trailing the Arizona Cardinals. Closing line was San Francisco -5, and the over-under was 46. The two teams combined for 50 points, so this game goes over. And I picked the Niners to win 26-16 and to cover the 5 points. And the Niners did so with these, winning by 16. So now I am 7-2-1 straight up and 7-3 against the spread. Staying in the NFC West, we've got the Seattle Seahawks at the Los Angeles Rams. Oh, quick note. There has never been a reigning Super Bowl champion to have a 6-game losing streak. Think about that for a moment. No reigning Super Bowl champion has ever had a 6-game losing streak the following season. And that's what's staring the Rams in their faces in this game. Again, no Matthew Stafford. He was put on IR earlier this week. He's expected to miss at least 4 games, but in all likelihood, I think his season is over. There was no Aaron Donald on the defense. So how would that translate for the Rams? We'll find out. Seattle came into this game at 6-5, LA at 3-8. And as I said earlier, there had never been a defending Super Bowl champion with a 6-game losing streak the following season. Until now, Geno Smith and the Hawks rallied in the fourth quarter to beat the Rams 27-23. The Seahawks ran 61 plays, 39 passes, 22 runs. The Rams ran 59 plays, 26 passes, and 33 runs. Total yards for 438 Seattle, 319 for LA. Huge advantage in passing yards to the Seahawks. 348 to 148. Rush yards nearly a 2-to-1 clip to the Los Angeles Rams, 171 to 90. First downs, 5 more for the Hawks, 25 to 20. Through 12 games, Seattle has 253, LA 208. Seattle finished 5 of 10 on third down for 50%. Rams 4 of 12 for 33.3%. LA went 1 for 2 on fourth down, converted 1. Or let me rephrase that. LA had 2 fourth down attempts in this game, converted 1 for 50%. No fourth down plays for Seattle. All right. 6 flags for the Seattle Seahawks for 42 yards, 4 for the Rams for 39. Time of possession favors Seattle, 30-53 to 29-07. Looking at the defenses in this game, 48 tackles, 33 solo for Seattle, 44 and 25 for LA. For the year, 597 tackles and 324 solo by Seattle, 493 and 188 for the Rams. Each team had 4 sacks, 31 total on the year for the Hawks, 26 for the Rams. Each team forced a fumble. So that's 16 for Seattle. That's the second most in football behind the Giants. And 9 for the Rams. 8 passes defense by this Seattle defense puts them at 58. 5 for LA brings them to 41. The Hawks defense recorded 2 interceptions. So that gives them 11 plus a defensive score this year. And LA's 1 interception gives them 7. The closing line in this game was Seattle minus 6.5. And the over-under is 41. I picked the Hawks to win. I picked the Hawks to cover. So I got the straight up pick. That makes me 8-2-1. But I missed the straight up pick. Or I missed the ATS pick. So that makes me 7-4 straight up. And this game goes over the 41 points. Okay. Now we're going to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs and the Cincinnati Bengals. Oh. All right. The Chiefs came in with a 9-2 record. They were the top seed in the AFC entering week 13. The Bengals, 7-4. Of course, Cincinnati beat Kansas City at Paycor Stadium last season and beat the Chiefs at Arrowhead in the AFC Championship game back in January. Now they're trying to beat the Chiefs for the third time in a calendar year. And it was a dogfight as the Bengals won by a final of 27-24. Fun fact, that was the same score in the AFC Championship game in January. Okay, Kansas City ran 52 plays, 27 passes, 25 runs. Bengals 65 plays, 31 passes, and 34 runs. Okay, 431 yards of offense for the Bengals, while the number one offense yards-wise in the NFL, the Kansas City Chiefs, were held to 349. Passing yards were 279 to 11 for Cincinnati. Rush yards 152 to 138 for Cincinnati. The Bengals also had the advantage in first downs, 26 to 20. Bengals now have 271 first downs through 12 games. The Chiefs 298 through 12. And both teams were pretty good on third down. Very good, in fact. 6 of 11, 54.5% for the Chiefs. 7 of 11, 63.6% for the Bengals. Kansas City had 2 fourth down attempts, converted them both. Bengals had 1 fourth down attempt, and that did not convert. They did not convert. Chiefs had 4 penalties for 35 yards. Bengals had 6 penalties for 65. Time of possession, 32 minutes and 6 seconds for Cincinnati. 27 minutes and 54 seconds for KC. As far as tackles are concerned, 49 tackles, 19 solo for the Chiefs. They're up to 5, 12, and 2, 13. 39 and 22 in this game for the Bengals, and 483 and 203 on the season. Chiefs had 1 sack, that's 36. Bengals had a couple, that's 22. Only forced fumble in the game went to the Bengals. That's their 9th of the year. The Chiefs stay at 8. Kansas City at 1 pass defense in the game. That's their 55th. 3 for the Bengals. That's 46. No interceptions on either side. Kansas City stays with 6 picks and 1 touchdown. Cincinnati remains at 8 interceptions. Closing line, Kansas City minus 2.5, over under 53.5. And this game just slightly finished below that at 51. I took the Bengals based. I took the Bengals based on recent history with the Chiefs. I have them winning 31-27, and I had Cincinnati cover as the home underdog, which they did, winning by a field goal. So now I am 9-2-1 straight up. 9-2-1 straight up. And 8-5 or 8-4. Yeah, 8-4. 8-4 against the spread. 9-2-1 straight up, 8-4 against the spread. Okay. The last of the Sunday afternoon games is the Chargers and the Raiders. Now, the last time the Chargers and Raiders played in Vegas was Week 18 last season. It was a win or go home type game. Vegas ended up beating and eliminating the Chargers from the playoffs, while also sending the Pittsburgh Steelers into the postseason on top of that. No such drama this time around, as the Chargers who came in at 6-5 and on the outside of the playoffs looking in, took on the 4-7 Raiders. Well, now you can call them the 5-7 Raiders, as Vegas wins this one 27-20. The Chargers ran 69 offensive plays, 47 passes, and 22 runs. And Vegas ran 59 plays, 30 passes, and 29 runs. Total yards were very close by the two teams. 404 for the Raiders, 386 for the Chargers. Passing yards favored LA, 314 to 250. Rush yards favored Vegas, 154 to 72. Then again, neither of LA's teams can run the ball, all aside the Rams this week. The Chargers had 22 first downs. The Raiders won fewer at 21. Through 12 games, Vegas has 2. And through 12 games, both teams rather have 245 first downs. LA was 5 of 16 on third down for 31.3%. Vegas 3 of 10 for 30%. How about this? The Chargers had 5 fourth down attempts in this game, and they converted 3 of the 5 for 60%. Vegas did not have a fourth down play. Okay, not a lot of penalties on either side. 4 penalties for 20 yards for the Chargers and 3 for 15 for the Raiders. That's it as far as penalties. 30 minutes, 44 seconds time of possession for the Chargers, 29 minutes and 16 seconds for the Las Vegas Raiders. Okay, tackles on both teams. 31-7 for the Chargers. They're up to 503 and 233. 51-27 for Vegas. They're up to 518 and 203. There were 5 sacks in this game, all 5 coming from the Raiders. 3 of those 5 sacks courtesy of Chandler Jones. So that puts the Raiders at 21, while the Chargers stayed put at 22. The Chargers forced 1 fumble in the game. That's their 11th of the season. While the Raiders forced 2 fumbles, numbers 8 and 9. All right. 10 total passes defense in this game, 6 by the Chargers and 4 by the Raiders. LA is now up to 41, and Vegas is up to 34. The Chargers had a pick 6 in this game. That gives LA 9 interceptions and their first defensive touchdown. Raiders did not record an interception, so they stay at 4 with 2 defensive scores. Closing line was Vegas minus 2.5. Over under was 49.5. I picked the Raiders to win this game 28-24. And to cover the spread. And I got both those picks right. So now I'm 10-2 and 1 straight up. And 9-4 against the spread. By the way, this game does go under the 51-point total or the 49.5-point total at close. All right, we're just about done here with the recap. We're on to Sunday Night Football. This week, it was the Indianapolis Colts with a 4-7-1 record, visiting Jerry World to face the Dallas Cowboys at 8-3. And this was almost like a carbon copy of the Giants game for the Dallas Cowboys. They let the opponent hang around, and then they started scoring points in the second half. And that was the case here in this game. The Cowboys held a 21-19 lead, I think, midway through the third quarter. But then they would proceed to score 33 straight points to close out the game. And Dallas would blitzkrieg Indianapolis 54-19. Yeah. All right. The Colts had 67 offensive plays, 37 passes, and 30 runs. The Cowboys, 64 offensive plays, 30 passes, and 34 runs. Total yards, 385 for Dallas, 309 for Indianapolis. Passing yards favored the Colts, 203, 165. Rush yards, more than 2-1 for the Cowboys, 220 to 106. First downs, 23 for Dallas and 18 for Indy. The Colts finished 4 of 13 for third down for 30.8%. Cowboys 7 of 13 for 53.8%. And both teams finished perfect on fourth down, 3 for 3 for Indianapolis, 1 for 1 for Dallas. The Colts had 6 penalties for 88 yards. Cowboys 3 penalties for 43. Time of possession is 31 minutes, 19 seconds for the Colts, 28 minutes, 41 seconds for the Cowboys. Now we'll take a look at their defenses. All right, 46 tackles, 20 solo for the Colts. Totals are now 591 and 287. 48 and 27 for the Cowboys. Season totals are 521 and 305. The Colts had 1 sack. That's 32 on the season. The Cowboys had 3, and they continue to lead the NFL with 48 sacks. That's a lot through 12 games, and they have 5 to play. All right. 2 forced fumbles in the game, both by the Cowboys. They're up to 16. They're tied with Seattle for the second most in football. The Colts stand pat at 9. Indy had 4 passes defense in the game. That's 43 on the year. 7 passes defense by the Cowboys. They're up to 40. And 4 total interceptions, 1 by the Colts and 3 by the Cowboys. So for Indy, that's 5 interceptions. Dallas has 9 with a defensive touchdown. Closing line was Dallas minus 11. Over under was 44. So I guess the odds makers weren't crazy when they put that big line up for the Dallas Cowboys. I picked the Cowboys to win a much closer game, 27-20. The game wound up shooting well over the 44 points as the two teams combined for 73. And I had Indianapolis to cover the massive 11-point spread. But like I said, they got blitzkrieg, losing by 35. So Dallas easily covers that point spread and then some. So that makes me 11-2-1 straight up. And 9-5 against the spread. And then the recap wraps up with Monday Night Football and a division battle in the very weak NFC South between the New Orleans Saints and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And once the screen comes up, I can tell you all about it. Here it is. All right. The Saints came in with a 4-8 record, while the Buccaneers led the NFC South with a 5-6 record. And it was comeback season for Tom Terrific and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They were down 16-3 with about 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. And Tom Brady led Tampa Bay on consecutive touchdown scoring drives, including the game winner in the closing seconds to edge out the Saints 17-16. All right, the Saints ran 54 plays, 29 passes, 25 runs. The Buccaneers ran 74 plays, 54 passes, and 20 runs. Total yards, 350 for Tampa Bay, 298 for New Orleans. Passing yards is 274 Tampa Bay, 232 New Orleans. Rushing yards also favored the Buccaneers, although there weren't many by either team. Only 76 for the Bucs and 66 for the Saints. First downs, 25 for Tampa, 14 for New Orleans. Through 12 games, the Buccaneers have 245 first downs, while the Saints have 239 through 13. New Orleans finished 5 of 14 on third down for 35.7%. Tampa Bay 8 for 15 on third down for 53.3%, and no fourth down plays by either team. The Saints had 6 penalties for 84 yards, while the Bucs had 4 for 39. Time of possession was 30 minutes and 19 seconds for New Orleans, 29 minutes and 41 seconds for Tampa Bay. All right. The Saints finished with 43 tackles and 15 solo. Totals are 565 and 252. Tampa Bay had 45 tackles, 30 solo. Totals are 524 and 265. 1 sack on the night for the Saints defense, 2 for the Buccaneers defense. So New Orleans now has 35 sacks on the season. Tampa Bay has 38. The 1 fumble in the game was forced by the New Orleans defense. That's their 9th of the year. Tampa Bay stays with that same number of 9. You had 7 passes defense by the Saints. That's 47 on the season. 4 passes defense by the Buccaneers. That's 37 now. And the lone interception of the game went to the Saints defense. That's only their 3rd of the year, fewest in football. And the Buccaneers have 7 interceptions and a defensive touchdown. Closing line was Tampa Bay -3, and the over-under was 41. They picked the Buccaneers to win 23-17. The game closed under the point total of 41, as the two combined for 33 points. And I took Tampa to cover, but New Orleans does cover as the road underdog. So all in all, a very good week picking these games. I went 12-2-1 straight up, solid number. And 9-6 against the spread. So yeah, I will take those numbers any day of the week. 12-1 straight up and 9-6 ATS. Week 13 has been pretty good to me. All right, so the recap's over. Now it's time to look at the updated NFL standings as we put Week 13 to bed. And we'll start off with the AFC North. The Baltimore Ravens and Cincinnati Bengals are tied atop the AFC North at 8-4. In fact, I'm going to get my glasses for this. Okay, the Baltimore Ravens and Cincinnati Bengals are tied atop the AFC North at 8-4. The Cleveland Browns and Pittsburgh Steelers are tied for 3rd at 5-7. The Buffalo Bills have jumped back in front in the AFC East at 9-3. They've won 3 games in a row. The Miami Dolphins slipped back to 2nd with an 8-4 record, followed by the New York Jets at 7-5. And the New England Patriots at 6-6. Sorry, my hand got in the way. Tennessee continues to run off with the AFC South. Despite the loss, they're 7-5, and they still have a pretty healthy lead. The Indianapolis Colts sit 2nd at 4-8, and it's the Jacksonville Jaguars at 4-8. In fact, the Colts are 4-8-1. That's my mistake. And the Houston Texans, now on a 7-game losing streak, they sit with a 1-10-1 record. And the Kansas City Chiefs still lead the AFC West at 9-3. The LA Chargers are 6-6, followed by the Las Vegas Raiders. All of a sudden getting back into the AFC playoff picture. They're at 5-7. And the ice cold Denver Broncos at 3-9 round out the AFC West. And then over in the NFC, the Minnesota Vikings, with 5 games left, have a 10-2 record and a 5-game lead on the Detroit Lions, who the Vikings play next week, by the way. The Lions are 5-7. They have won 4 out of 5. Then it's the Green Bay Packers at 5-8. And the Chicago Bears, not eliminated from the playoffs officially, but they're getting pretty close with that 3-10 record. They are on a 6-game losing streak. The Philadelphia Eagles continue to fly high atop the NFC East with an 11-1 record, best in the NFL. Dallas Cowboys are at 9-3, keeping pace with Philly. Both teams have won 3 straight games. Then you got the New York Giants at 7-4-1, and the Washington Commanders at 7-5-1. Of course, the 2 teams tied this week. All right, Tampa Bay still in front in the NFC South with a 6-6 record. Then it's the Atlanta Falcons at 5-8, the Carolina Panthers at 4-8, and the New Orleans Saints at 4-9, pretty much putting an end to their season after losing last night. And in the NFC West, it's the San Francisco 49ers at 8-4, the Seattle Seahawks at 7-5, the Arizona Cardinals 4-8, and the Los Angeles Rams, the defending Super Bowl champions, at 3-9, and the first defending Super Bowl champion to have a 6-game losing streak the year after winning the Lombardi Trophy. That's not good, folks. All right, one more order of business, and that's the Week 14 Power Rankings, and then we'll close this down for today. All right, so here are my new Week 14 Power Rankings. Number 32 is the Houston Texans in the same spot, and pretty much until further notice, because they do suck. Number 31, the Los Angeles Rams, down from 30. Trading spots with them essentially at number 30 are the Chicago Bears, up from 31. The New Orleans Saints at 29 and the Denver Broncos at 28 remain in the same spots. 27 is the Indianapolis Colts, down from 24. 26 is the Carolina Panthers, up from 27. 25 is the Jacksonville Jaguars, down from 22. 24, the Cleveland Browns, up from 26. 23 is the Arizona Cardinals, up from 25. 22 is the Green Bay Packers, up from 23. 21 is the Atlanta Falcons, down from 18. 20 is the Las Vegas Raiders, up from 21. 19 is the Los Angeles Chargers, down from 15. 18 is the Pittsburgh Steelers, up from 20. 17 is the New York Jets, down from 13. 16, the Detroit Lions, up from 19. Call me crazy. 15 is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, up from 16. 14 is the Seattle Seahawks, up from 17. 13, the New England Patriots, down from 10. 12 is the Tennessee Titans, down from 11. Number 11 this week is the New York Giants, up from 14. Number 10, the Washington Commanders, up from 12. Number 9, and staying in the same spot, the Baltimore Ravens. Number 8 is the Miami Dolphins, down from 6. 7 is the Cincinnati Bengals, up from 8. 6 is the Minnesota Vikings, up from 7. And it's the same top 5 in my order, although I should have swapped 1 and 2 out, but oh well. The Buffalo Bills stay at number 5. The Dallas Cowboys at 4. The San Francisco 49ers at 3. The Philadelphia Eagles at 2. And the Kansas City Chiefs at number 1. Okay, folks, that is it for week 13 of the week that was. As I ran down the statistical numbers from all 15 games in week number 13 in the NFL, we ran down the updated NFL standings, and you just heard my week 14 power rankings. All right. I'm going to rest up right now, and we'll be back on the grind tomorrow for week number 14. I will be making my picks on Thursday with the maps for all Sunday afternoon games and the announcers as well for all these Sunday games. And I will update the playoff races in the NFL. That's coming on Thursday, so join me for that. In the meantime, like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell and get notified every time I go live. Big Al signing off. Thanks for watching and enjoy the pigskin. Peace out.